Hello, lovely people. Welcome to Ari Talks About Music. I'm Ari, and today I'll be reviewing the new Pulp album, More. More is the eighth album from the English rock band Pulp, and actually their first album in over 20 years, with the band having been on quite a lengthy hiatus since their previous album, We Love Life, in 2001. And I think that until now, Pulp have been following the pretty typical Britpop band pipeline, having been releasing pretty mediocre music since their peak with Different Class in 1995, and then, of course, breaking up in 2002. And now I think that they have finally broken away from that, with More genuinely being an incredible comeback album, especially for a band who were a part of a scene in the 90s where much more of the newer music from said bands is notoriously not that good. But I genuinely think that a lot of the material on this album is leagues ahead of what the majority of Britpop bands have been doing since the 90s, and I think that Pulp do an incredible job on this album of really showcasing what else they are capable of, and just breaking down many genre barriers that in the past they've not done so well, and finally just creating a very straightforward and very good rock album free of all that much Britpop influence. Spike Island is a great opening track, sounding almost a bit LCD sound system inspired, especially just with a lot of the electronic instruments that he used, particularly during the chorus. And of course, in typical Pulp fashion, I love how theatrical this song is, as well as just how well Jarvis Cocker's vocals are suited to that style. Tina has absolutely incredible use of strings in a way that almost feels like it should be overbearing, but somehow isn't, and is actually one of my favorite aspects of the whole song. The latter half of the track too is absolutely fantastic, with a really nice transition featuring a great drum solo, and then of course just the absolutely brilliant performances from every single member of the band. Grown Ups, I think, does kill the album's momentum just a little bit. As punchy as the intro is, I think it's just nothing more than that, and I think more than anything it just lacks the energy and the dynamics of the opening two songs. Transition aside, I do still think that this is a great song, and I think does a fantastic job at exploring the more sensual side of Pulp sound, which is something that I've always loved them for. I do also love the guitar riff at the beginning of the song being, I think, one of the best on the album, but I think that because the guitar riff just never changes for the entire track, the longer it goes on, the more boring and annoying it gets. And so couple that with the very, again, repetitive drumming, and I think that it's only really the first half of the song that I think is all that good, with the latter half just being so annoying and just dragging on for way longer than it should. But luckily, every time the chorus comes in, I think those are definitely the best moments of the song. Again, just being so grand and theatrical, and luckily giving you a bit of a break from the aforementioned guitar riff and drumming that I think just get far too annoying the longer the song goes on. But I do just think it's a little bit unfortunate they have such a presence everywhere else except the chorus. Slow Jam is a pretty self-explanatory song just from the title, and I think does a far better job at portraying that than the previous song, with there still being somewhat of an attempt at a slower and calmer sound, but Slow Jam just does it infinitely better, with the overall much more sensual and intimate feel of this track just being so much more consistent. The string arrangements on the song, while used sparingly, I think are still one of the absolute best things about it because of how much they provide every time they do make an appearance, with them always creating such an incredible atmosphere and really helping to make the song so much more emotive. I think that this track also does an absolutely fantastic job at showcasing Jarvis Cocker's versatility as a vocalist, just with the way he can completely seamlessly go from very soft and calm to so much more expressive and passionate just like that, with a lot of the shorter outbursts of moments like that on this track, again just being incredible and providing so much versatility and diversity. Farmer's Market is then unfortunately just a filler song, with it having still many of the great features of a lot of the songs on this album, but just presented in a way that is so much less interesting, because you still have the string arrangements and the very sensual vocals, but I think on this track it just feels a bit more generic than anything, with on every other song on this album that has those incredible features, they really make something out of it and make it worth your time to listen to. And I think part of the problem on this track as well is just how much structure it lacks, with it mostly just feeling very messy and there being very little direction to it, which I think does end up just making it a lot harder to try and incorporate those elements into the song if there's not even a structure to work with in the first place. I Sex is another very soft and quite mysterious sounding song, which I do really like, but I do then love how when you take a much closer look at the lyrics, it's actually quite playful. I do especially love the mention of Jarvis Cocker claiming he doesn't even have a gender, and I do just love that style of the very mysterious and almost very serious tone that the song has sonically, but then of course the very playful and at times silly lyrics. Got to Have Love goes full Florence and the Machine with the very epic arrangements and powerful backing vocals, and funnily enough this is now actually the second song in Pulp's catalogue where Jarvis Cocker spells out the word love. I think as messy and chaotic as this song can be at times, I still love a lot of the ideas that are shown off, especially with the quite prominent use of much more electronic instrumentations, which is not something that they've done all that much until this album. And I think that as sparse as these moments are, they are still used very well. Background noise, again, I think is another pretty self-describing song, being perfectly okay, but just feeling more like filler than anything. I think that it's the closest thing that this album has to an actual Britpop song, and I think that with Pulp being so far removed from that genre at this point, it just doesn't really fit in at all, and ends up just feeling quite underwhelming with them having moved away from that quite a long time ago, and having moved on to other things that they are now again doing an incredible job at. Partial Eclipse, while being a slightly more interesting song than Background Noise, I think overall it's still quite a dull listen. I do still quite like the vocals on this track as well as a slightly better instrumental palette, but for whatever reason it does just feel like Got to Have Love has just killed whatever energy the album had left, which is where Hymn of the North comes in, which I think is a song that is finally starting to embrace the direction that the album's sound is taking, being much more focused just on the simplicity, with there mostly just being vocals, a piano, and the odd other instrument for the first half of the song. It almost ruins itself as it starts to build up with these really weird and unnecessary auto-tune vocals, but luckily this moment doesn't last very long at all. But then luckily the actual build-up itself is incredible, and once again showing an amazing ability to be able to do so much despite it being so simple. Finally, A Sunset gives the album a quiet but still beautiful ending, with again a very strong acoustic focus, which is something that I do actually quite like about the last two songs. I do also particularly love a lot of the string arrangements on this track, with them genuinely being some of the best and most expressive on the album. And so while this album is quite inconsistent on the whole, the fact that they still managed to create a project with so many individual moments and songs that are as incredible as they are, I think is absolutely amazing considering how long it's been since Pulp have actually made a good album. I of course love how they are really breaking away from the Britpop label that's been put on them, and now just kind of doing their own thing, creating a more straightforward rock album and showing how good they are at that. And I really think that just with a little bit more polish and maybe trimming out some of the more unnecessary moments, it might not be that long before we see Pulp completely back on form, creating albums that may even be just as good as Different Glass. And so for that reason, this album is going to get a 7 out of 10 from me. Thank you so much for watching this review. Please be sure to listen to this album yourself and tell me your thoughts below. Please leave a like if you liked the video, and please leave a dislike if you didn't like the video, and remember to stay hydrated.